So I'm delighted this morning to be with Richard Thorpe. Amazing news in the last few days. I'm just going to stream this hopefully onto Facebook as well. So just bear with me one moment, and if it all goes to plan, we will be streaming onto Facebook as well. So Richard, really delighted with the news. I know you're really delighted to be back in rugby as well. I'm just waiting for us to stream this on Facebook. It may go to YouTube, I think. So let me just bear with me 2 moments, Richard, this morning. So Richard, 11 caps for Canada. 2015 was your greatest triumph, I would say, in rugby international. We're going to stream this, as I say, onto YouTube. So for my YouTube listeners, massive thanks for you joining myself. In terms of international games, against Ireland was your greatest game, 2015, or really prominent, playing in the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. So let's. I might just have to stream this a little bit later. It says still preparing. So in terms of domestic, you've played for Leicester Tigers. So incredible pedigree before moving on to coaching as well, cognacity coaching, and then you're going back in for Chinnor Rugby Club, which dates back to the 1960s, based in Oxfordshire, and it's really, really breaking news. I was going to say life transforming, Richard. Is that too strong a word?
Well, I mean, interestingly, I mean, I'm a performance coach now. I work with executives, I work with athletes that are transitioning and still playing. I work with entrepreneurs on a sort of one-to-one and group-based level. That's like what I do now. I've still got interest in property, obviously, that's why we speak together all the time.
And specifically property finance, I would say.
Yeah, so we fund property developers. So we have a lending business that lends second charge mezzanine debt into SME property developers. But I leave that to my brother to run the day to day. I do about a half day, maybe a day a week.
I didn't realise that. I thought it was a lot less than that, but you're still quite active.
Yeah. And the rest of my life is taken up with coaching. Now, what has now just been announced is I've absorbed a rugby club into that coaching. So yeah, I'm delighted to announce I'm now Director of Rugby at Chinnor Rugby Club. Chinnor are a Tame-based club based in Buckinghamshire, just next to Oxfordshire. We play in National 1. We were promoted from National 2 last year, and when I retired in 2016, I actually was with Chinnor as their head coach. So that was responsible for all things on the field. But with the changes that are going on globally at the moment, there's a lot of shake-up going on in rugby. And there's an opportunity there at Chinnor, and it's a club that I love deeply. I've got some very close friends that are still a great, important part of the club. And to be able to go back there is really exciting. It's going to be a challenging period now. We've got a lot of players, rugby players, professional rugby players, dealing with a great deal of uncertainty. The lists of players that I'm getting from agents now are exceptionally long. I mean, as a coach, I haven't seen so many players available on the market.
And some of them may be Premier League as well?
Well, what we'll start to see now, I mean, like the Championship has had its funding from the RFU substantially reduced. So we're going to see less money in the Championship leagues, which means more players will start to exit the game. But also, the clubs that actually have good backing, the clubs that have a strong financial foundation will start to do well, even if they are in National 1, in terms of being able to pick up players from sort of the top tier of the Championship and above. So we could find ourselves over the coming season or two in a really strong position to be able to recruit a pretty powerful side. Now, I mean, where we sit at the moment, how does a rugby club earn its revenue? It's got to sell tickets, it's got to sell sponsorship deals, and it's got to sell pints behind the bar. No rugby clubs are doing that at the moment.
So once you're out of the top flight, the Premier I'm not sure it's called Premier League or Premiership because it's
Premiership.
Premiership. So once you're out of the Premiership, then the revenue from TV is less, substantially less. Yeah.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
So it's a slightly different ball game, no pun intended, from the Premiership.
Oh, I like that one, Brendan. Yeah, nice. Very good.
Yeah. So look, well, one thing I would say is time management will be really key for you going forward. So for our listeners out there, what's your advice on time management? Because you've got cognoscity coaching, which you said you're still going to be involved with. You've got RDT Invest, it's a slightly different brand name now. I can never remember it, but
yeah, ZSL Capital.
ZSL Capital.
Yeah.
And then you've also got the rugby club, and also marathon running. Is that still going ahead, or should I not mention it?
Indeed, it is. Yeah, I'm still chipping away at that one. I haven't quite completed a solo marathon yet. I keep failing. Continue to fail. Call the girlfriend and get her to come pick me up. But I'm going to get there, Brendan, and I look forward to updating you on that one.
Yeah,
but look,
I'm sure.
You've hit the nail on the head there. Sound time management is going to be key, and that's probably the useful thing that anyone watching this video might be able to take away from it. When you're wearing multiple hats, it's very important to be able to compartmentalize your work. I mean, you and I have spoken before, Brendan, about task switching, about multitasking versus being task focused. If you start to switch your attention between tasks, it drastically impacts your performance to the negative. You have to be able to compartmentalize your work. So time management, very simply, is blocking out specific chunks of time during the course of your week and focusing exclusively on that. So for me, it's going to be a challenge. I'm going to have to be very disciplined around what phone calls I take if I'm out coaching and I have as in executive coaching, and I have a call from the rugby club. It's going to have to be an auto response. I'll speak to you tomorrow when I'm on Chinnor time, and things like that, to try and just keep the attention really centered on where I'm at.
Richard, I was going to say that sounds great. Is there a team behind you as well? A team Richard Thorpe?
So at the rugby club there is. So I've in the 24 hours since this was announced, not 48 hours, I think it's been a couple of days now, I've been able to appoint a team manager. That person's going to work very closely with me. He'll effectively be my second in command, and a club captain. Now that's not the on-field captain, that's the off-field captain. He's one of the players, but he's a senior player, and he will just manage the boys. If I need something done, he's the guy that will go and ensure that it gets delivered. Having those two in place at this stage is key. They've got the hearts and minds of all the players. They know them all on a personal level, and can start to shift the tide now, because there's been a real, at Chinnor, but also at other rugby clubs around National 1 and the Championship, there's been a lot of negativity. It's very easy with a group of men for negativity to start to spread, and it can spread quickly, and it can sometimes take an interjection to shift the tide, and that's their role as well as mine now. But
I was going to say, I know this is not necessarily going to help the audience, but I will ask the question. So you've got international, well, maybe it does in a way, because you've got international experience as well. And do you think that puts you a different, I know you've won the Premiership with Leicester Tigers, I think once, maybe twice. But you've also had international experience as well. And do you think that's put you at a different level as well?
Well, I know Chinnor really well. I've been there as a head coach, but I wasn't the man in charge. Most clubs at these levels are run by people that wouldn't have been exposed to how the best people in the world operate clubs like this. I'm really fortunate that I've been exposed to that, and I've worked with some of the best coaches on the planet. So I can confidently say that we will look to build an infrastructure and a foundation that could see us into the Championship or beyond. And we'll do that from day one. if we're going to do this, we're going to do this properly. We're going to have things put in place, structures put in place, philosophies put in place, a way of operating, an identity and a vision that the boys will set. It will be player-centred, so that we've got this infrastructure that as things start to change, as new players start to join the squad, and as existing players grow as people and as players, we will literally grow into a team that's highly competitive in English rugby. So yeah, that's kind of the plan. So yeah, my experience in Premiership and international rugby will be very important now.
What did you, and this, Rich, the audience can relate to, what did you see the difference between playing at a lower level and playing at international level?
Yeah.
What was so different about the training? Was it the training drills? Was it, what was it?
Yeah, I mean, probably the most clear difference would be very clear assigned roles and responsibilities amongst the management team and the coaching team. What you tend to find in lower levels is that you'll get players doing a bit of coaching, you'll get coaches doing a bit of management, you'll have the director of rugby sweeping up the changing rooms, and no one really knows who's got what job. Being very clear and assigning and empowering players and management and coaches for specific roles, and they grow into it, and they take ownership over it, and they may be able to delegate and so on, gives a clear line in the hierarchy, and allows people to know precisely what their job is. We'll find all the time things such as, well, I'm not doing that, it's not my job. That sort of thing gets said at Championship and National One Rugby. We want that. We want clarity around that. But more than clarity, we want ownership. We want the players genuinely understanding what their job is off field. I'm talking about now, so that they're able to deliver to the best of their ability when they're on the field.
Richard, I was going to say, I promised it would be 5 minutes. So look, we could easily go.
We always go over, Brent.
Yeah, we could easily go on. All I'm going to say is, for the listeners out there, join myself, join Richard. It was really good timing to have you back on the panel this afternoon. So it's your first panel prior to being at the club, or you're at the club now, but early season. So massive thanks. And Richard, I just want to say thanks for taking time out this morning as well.
That was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking.